Are you doing a spotlight or someone doing a spotlight today?
Board liaison on that.
Fantastic. So, excellent.
Good morning.
So, I need your help. I got a conspiracy thing here for the service. So I'm just going to slide my hand over. I think half your tenors got distracted. Actually, at least one of them did anyway. I think we got it. I'm going to.
In the conversation I want to do the worst of that. It takes about 2 hours to run this operation a year. That breaks down.
I spent years trying to run this thing classical, and I said, we do this all the time.
That's an average of $1,500.
Oh, I know about some.
That's to make it work.
Actually, probably something closer to two.
Actually, it's $1,300. On the average.
Which means that we need to actually get somewhere from two.
But just even the 1,300 with something like $50, there is. You got and I think too, my spiel, my part of spiel is we're standing on the shoulders of people who came before us. But in order to continue to accomplish the vision and mission of our foundation, we need to support financially. And unlike WBAK, which is the local PBS station, we don't have 2 fundraisers a year. We don't have a fall and spring fundraiser. We have 1.
So far, and if we don't, we might.
Yeah, we come up with the secondary, third one, fourth one.
So far, we've been able to get away with only one.
Historic.
That's great. So that's always the threat. It's like,
Yeah.
you could go to 2.
And after that, we're selling tickets. To get in, you have to pay $10.
You know, and in the Jewish community, the high holidays, you got to buy a ticket to get in for Rosh Hashanah. That's how they, unless you're a member, and because members pay a certain fee, they set a fee.
I was talking with somebody about the bonus over 10%. They really do consider 10%.
Not just 10% once, it's 10% twice, because they pay it to the national and to the local. I've had former members of churches in Texas, and it's like, who found out when people are paying gas for the shoes, they're like, oh my God, like, that's,
Okay, maybe we should aim for well, not more, but 10% of tithing would be a good thing.
well, when I was a second, I brought up to 5%
Yeah.
gross. And all this was 85% of the gross, he was fired. And for me, that was almost $50,000.
Well, in my lifetime, we lost the big difference. We ended up moving our
So,
yeah, we don't have that. My wife and I bid on Kathy Ganazzi's cabin up in Wisconsin. It's nice. Now she lives in it all the time.
Well, that cuts down on it.
Yeah.
All right. No, I think that's great.
Hi, question for you. Andrew is like part of the spotlight just to talk about what the snow's
Okay.
So, and if anyone can offer help.
Okay. So what I'm going to suggest is then that you be the first spotlight. Okay. You come up and introduce yourself.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then I have stuff I can talk about.
Okay.
That's fine. That's
After the board member, right?
Oh yeah. It's in the order of service where it says spotlight.
Okay.
Yes. Mine's been running like a sieve. Mine's been running like a sieve with sinuses.
Just every now and then I get something irritating. I don't know what it is. Just, ironically, I live with Karen, my dog, and I'm down there.
It's 10. It's 10.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of good wait for a few people to log in. It's a few minutes for the late
Right.
Steve just got here and started doing coverage. It's like kids checking the boss.
Good morning. What a toe-tapping way to start the day. My name is John DeGrieve, and I am the current treasurer of this wonderful organization. I'm also chairman of the religious services team. Welcome to our service. Unitarian Universalism encourages an open-end search for meaning in life and a commitment to asking our values to shape our actions. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people here in our community, whether you've been here for 5 minutes or 50 years. Whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We especially welcome those who may be worshiping with us for the first time. We invite you to join us after service downstairs for coffee and snacks so that we can get to know each other better. Guests are welcome to participate in any activities in our community. If you would like more information about the congregation, you can ask me or any board member or Reverend Patrick Price. And today we're having a conversation with Patrick after the service, so a quick coffee and back up here for further discussion. Welcome. Who's the spotlight?
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie, spotlight.
Good morning. My name is Anne-Marie Tody, and I am a member of the property team. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but we had a snowstorm come through. And as you drove up, I'm hoping that you observed that we had some damage on the property. If anyone can offer any assistance at this time with the cleanup, come see me after the service. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Hannah Harrington. I'm coming to you today representing the pledge drive. So as you know, we're well in the midst of that. We've had 4 very successful pledge drive potlucks. So thank you to Steve Burke and Darcy Anderson, the DeGrieves, Mike and Bill and Sylvia Roba hosted one last night. So also thank you to those of you attending those. It's an effort to try to build the community back up and make that kind of put that value on the things that we have in our church. With that being said, today we have Marcy Doyle giving a testimony on why she gives to the church and what the church means to her.
You're going to get my history in a nutshell. Okay, and I wrote it out so that I wouldn't take too much time. But anyway, I was raised Roman Catholic. As a young adult, I landed in a dually aligned American Baptist and UCC church in New York City. And I was drawn to it by the arts program in music, but I ended up staying because the pastor said that the questions were more important than the answers, and that resonated with me. And so then we came to the Quad Cities, and my husband was an American Baptist clergyman, and as long as he was preaching, I was fine. But I found that the American Baptist church that we joined when we arrived was stuck on, inspiration only from the New Testament of the Bible, and that's just way too limiting for me. So I came here and found what I really needed, I think, was a place where my own spiritual journey would be fostered. I think that, I'm not sure I really understood the principles when I first got here, but anyway, I think that the 4th principle is the one that applies. The search for truth and meaning, responsible search for truth and meaning is encouraged for all of us. Anyway, so that's how I got here. Also, there were no pews. And let me tell you, I have divided churches into those that have kept their pews and those that have not kept their pews. And better are the ones that have flexible sanctuaries, okay? That's my feeling about it. So that was it. Why I got here. That's how I got here. The reason why I stayed, partially the pews, but also, I think that, okay, I wrote it down, and I'm going to have to look just for a second because I'm getting nervous. Is that funny? I think that I believe that congregations exist partially to take care of each other, but also to work for peace and justice out in the world. And this place, of course, fosters that, search and desire and work, and the people who do it. And as a result, also I was allowed to contribute to the community through Quad Cities Interfaith, and totally supported here by you guys. And then I was also able to use my brains and what have you on the board of directors and leadership development committee and a few other task forces, and now the Healthy Congregation Task Force. And believe me, it feels good to have, to be respected and that you can have something to contribute, that other people acknowledge the fact that you have something to contribute is really important too, and that's always happened here. My work with immigration and QCI was supported. And then I also found my spiritual journey was supported in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm sort of an eclectic person that way, but I was introduced to Buddhism here, and it's enriched my life a great deal. Okay, so I found a lot of friends here. Community's so important to me. You all have supported me through several life changes, breast cancer, a really weird hospital stay a couple of years ago, my grandchildren coming to live almost, full-time with me, other things like that. Just recently, I got pulled over by a dog and hit my head and side really badly, where I landed in the emergency room. Well, I didn't want to go in an ambulance, so I had to find somebody to take me, and I called a friend, and she dropped everything and took me to the hospital. And she's sitting right there. Love you. And if you're awake. Anyway, I appreciate being accepted for who I am here. And I'll just say one more thing. As an aging woman, we often experience being almost feeling like we're invisible, that we're not taken seriously at all. And that has not been the case here. I sometimes use my age as my excuse for forgetting something or whatever, but basically y'all have accepted me the way I am. And especially, I gotta tell you, it's really interesting. Recently, I've been going to game nights here with my grandchildren, and it's really a lot of fun. And, but what's really, when I'm thinking about it, reflecting on it, almost every other adult in the room on game night is young enough to be my child or a grandchild, okay? But I have never, ever, they make me feel like I'm one of them all the time, okay? And it is wonderful. So these reasons, and some things I've forgotten that I wrote, are the reasons why I put my time and energy into, for instance, healthy congregations. I hang out downstairs a little bit. And I would hope that you would do the same. I give as much money as I can. I would hope you all would do the same, to keep what's wonderful about this congregation and to help us grow into what we're meant to be already. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. I give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way. I give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way. I give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way. I give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way. To love life is to notice the wonders that abound, and to notice the wonders that abound is to be grounded here and now. And to be grounded here and now is the beginning of finding love for this life today. Let us ground ourselves in this instant in the worship of all things good and right. Let us join now in the unison chalice lighting as I light the chalice. Not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that we are in the world, and who we are together matters. We light this chalice together in knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world. We're going to sing our hymn in just a second. I need to give you a little instruction for the orders for the sermon because you have to do something for me. Little slips of paper should have been handed out to most of you. If you didn't get one, raise your hand and one of the ushers or someone can bring you one. And if you need something to write with, can you bring pencils or little slips of paper to people who may want to raise their hands? And what I'm going to ask you to do with these little slips of paper, as legibly as you can, in a word, a phrase, or a brief sentence, what does money mean to you? Or what is the meaning of money to you in your life? And I want you to write what it actually means, not what you think it should, or what you think someone else would be happy that you say it does. What does money mean to you? In a word, a phrase, or a sentence. And you can do this now, between now and when the offering is collected. This will be collected up with the offering. And those of you online, if you would like to put something in chat, we will do our best to collect those as well. Okay? Does everybody have what they need? Okay. So you don't need to do your homework now. We're going to sing a hymn now. But I wanted to give you those instructions, and because that's going to be a central part, you get to participate in the sermon this way. All right? So now let us sing our hymn, number 287, Faith of the Larger Liberty, and rise as you're willing and able in body and or in spirit. Faith of the larger liberty, laws of the light expanding, of the church that is to be, oh, Please remain standing and join us in our responsive reading, 464, and then by Judy Chicago. Let us begin. And then all that has divided us will merge. And then compassion will be wedded to power. And then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. And then both men and women will be gentle. And then both women and men will be strong. And then no person will be subject to another's will. And then all will be rich and free and varied. And then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many. And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will cherish life's creatures. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. And in spirit, we greet the holy present in our midst by turning and briefly greeting our neighbors. Can
I'll just stand here because I don't necessarily like that podium up there. So, today I'd like to share the story of a Japanese folktale. It's called The Burning of the Rice Fields. I think that this story teaches us a lesson that we should really think about what it is that we value most. We should always remember what is the most important to us and be willing to take action when action is needed. And this is the folktale. Once there was a good old man who lived upon a mountain far away in Japan. All around his little house, the mountain was flat and the ground was rich. And there were rice fields for all of the people who lived in the village at the mountain's foot. Mornings and evenings, the old man and his little grandson, who lived with him, used to look far down onto the people at work in the village, and they would watch the blue seas which lay all around the land, so close that there was no room for the fields below, only for houses. The little boy loved the rice fields dearly, for he knew that all the good food for all the people came from them, and he often helped his grandfather to watch over them. Now, one day, the grandfather was standing alone before his house, looking down at the people and out at the sea, when suddenly he saw something very strange far off, where the sky and the sea met. Something like a great cloud was rising there, and as if the sea were lifting high onto itself into the sky. The old man put his hands to his eyes and looked again hard as his old sight could. Then he turned to the house and ran. "Jan, Jan," he called, "bring a brand from the hearth." The little grandson could not imagine what his grandfather had wanted with fire, but he always obeyed. So he ran quickly and brought the brand. The old man already had one and was running for the rice fields. Jan ran after him. But what was his horror to see his grandfather thrusting the burning brand into the ripe, dry rice where it stood. Oh, grandfather, screamed the little boy. What are you doing? Quick, set fire. Thrust your brand in, said the grandfather. Jan thought his dear grandfather had lost his mind, and he began to sob. But a little Japanese boy always obeyed, so he did through sobs, and he thrust his torch in, and the sharp flame ran up the dry stalks, red and yellow. In an instant, the field was ablaze, and the thick black smoke began to pour up onto the mountainside. It rose like a cloud, black and fierce, and in no time, the people below saw that their precious rice fields were on fire. Oh, how they ran. Men and women and children climbed the mountain, running as fast as they could to save their rice. Not one soul stayed behind. And when they came to the mountaintop and saw the beautiful rice crop all in flames beyond help, they cried bitterly, "Who has done such a thing? How? How did it happen?" And the old man said, "I set fire to the field," very solemnly. And the little grandson sobbed, "Grandfather set fire." But when they came fiercely around the old man with whys and whys and whys, he only turned and pointed at the sea and said, "Look." They all turned and looked, and there, where the blue sea had lain so calmly, a mighty wall of water, reaching from earth to sky, was rolling in the land, passing quietly over the place to where the village had been. With an awful sound on the mountain, it broke, and in one wave more, and still more came, and then all was under the water. As far as they could see below, the village where they had once laid was now under the sea. But all the people were safe, and when they saw what the old man had done, they honored him above all other men for his quick wit, which had saved them all from the tidal wave. And now, if the children would like to go downstairs, we have a project that we're going to do.
Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. You may go. Peace. And may your love surround you. Our readings this morning are excerpts from a book which is now considered a modern classic called Money and the Meaning of Life by the late Jacob Needleman. Needleman was a professor at the University of San Francisco for many, many years and an emeritus for almost as many years as he served there. He died last November at the age of 90. He says, authentic human existence requires the co-presence of two worlds, the inner and the outer. To exist in one world alone is not to exist at all. What, after all, is the point of physical survival without the inner contact? What is the point of eating, sleeping, and reproducing without our being conscious of ourselves? When you sacrifice your self-interest for the good of other people, a joy and a sense of meaning that nothing else can give you appears. To be deeply human with another person, it doesn't matter what the context brings a current of life into the interaction. We are born to give. Deep down in our essence, love is our nature, and I believe that we have to touch even when we're making our money. He says, a human being, according to the great spiritual teachings of the world, has two natures or aspects, a side that is meant to be engaged in activity in the world, making and doing, having a family, creating, building. The other side has to do with the spiritual, the transcendent, the relationship to God, one's deepest inner consciousnose. Those two natures make up who we are. We are called on to find the relationship between these two opposing parts of ourselves and to develop the kind of awareness that relates each to the other in a harmonious way. We are neither pure spirit nor pure egos and animals. We are that which relates these two levels or forces together. The meaning of our life in the material world, how we eat, how we work and raise families and create, only emerges when it is connected to the spiritual world. The meaning of spirit appears when it's related to our life in the world. While we're on this earth, we are meant to be in relationship to these two worlds. The real meaning of life comes when you feel and know that there is a connection. The conditions of life in our current culture do not support inner experiences of movement toward a higher part of oneself that are as vivid as experiences of the outer world and the part of oneself that is drawn to the outer world. And as money has become the principal means for organizing contact with the outer world, there is nothing more vivid for most of us than the question of how to have, get, make, and accumulate money. No fear greater for many of us than the fear of not having money. Money is the principal means in the modern world for organizing the material part of our lives and ourselves. We need to relate with money in a conscious way. It starts by having the courage and sincerity to really look at money, to see how we feel about it and how we relate to it. If we can do this, which very few of us do, we will see our relationship with money to be full of fears and contradictions and conditioning, and it will be quite shocking. But that's the first step towards self-knowledge, to get rid of our illusions about ourselves and our relationship with money. We're all pretty weird about money. Do you know anyone who's normal about money? We don't even know what that means. And yet money plays such a central part in our lives. The strange paradox is that money is nothing. It's just paper, as people say. And yet the bottom line is it's taken to be the most real thing in life. The experience of the inner world for most people is not enough to give real faith that there is something more important than money. The inner world, the world of self-knowledge, the world of self-exploration, can be immensely more vivid than the world of money or of another quality. But most of us, unfortunately, have very dull inner worlds. Therefore, the outer world, the world of money, seems more real. Our society has not helped us cultivate a real inner life. Search for a quality of inner experience that is at least as vivid, as intense as our concern about money. So ends the reading. This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accordance with our principles, mission, and vision. We are a welcoming congregation to people of all sexual orientations, and we unconditionally welcome any and all of you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. Our congregation is entirely self-governed by democratic processes. One of the privileges of a free church community is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are now invited to participate in the blessing of giving as the ushers come among you to accept the gifts for the congregation. Also, please remember to put in the slips of paper, as you may. And as we finish collecting, we'd also invite people to come forward to share a candle, to light a candle for a joy, concern, or milestone that may be present in your life. Of the joys and concerns shared among us, I am sharing a joy that I have been accepted to the University of Illinois graduate program for the Master's in Social Work, and I will begin studying coursework in mid-May. It's a 2.5-year program. I'll be specializing in clinical and mental health. Zachary offers, my friends Abby and Josh are having some financial difficulties and need $400 before April 5th. If you would like to see, sorry? Sorry. It has been shared by Zachary, my friends Abby and Josh are having some financial difficulties and need $400 before April 5th. Please see him if you are interested in assisting. My prayers and concerns for those who have lost their lives and loved ones in the storms in Mississippi and other places in the country. Our hearts are open to those who are suffering in the midst of war around the world, whether it's Ukraine or in other places in Africa or other parts of the world. Let us become aware of the energy that brings us together in our shared joys and sorrows as we move into a time of quiet. May we each open our minds and hearts to a place of calm and allow the coming of love to fill us in this silence. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationships, make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite us with the courage of the living tradition. Remind us that we are not alone in entering the future. Anchor us with patience and perseverance. Remind us that we are not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with your Spirit manifest in human hands and voices. Remind us that we are not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor and extend the beauty we find in this world. Divine music of the universe, let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms, cooperating with an everlasting dance of love. May we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of compassion. May we move with the rhythms of justice. O source of stars and planets and water and land, open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So be it. Blessed be. Amen. Please join us in our hymn of meditation, number 112, Do You Hear? And rise as you're willing and able in body or spirit.
I'll play one verse through because I believe this might not be well known.
In the vale, on the main, in the sun, in the rain. your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear? Do you hear? All the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers, they are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear? Do you hear? Thank you. Please be seated. Again, a reminder, we'll have a conversation after service today to talk about where we are in the pledge drive and in the transition process and other things. So please come as you're able. There'll use childcare available for those who need it. I appreciate those of you who were able and willing to participate in sharing your answers. We'll read through them in just a moment. But in the meantime, I have something else to do here. I'm going to ask our treasurer, John DeGrieve, to come up. I have a very formal task for him. Come on all the way up here. Now, John, I want you to identify this piece of money. Is this a real $20 bill?
Yes.
Apparently so. Yes. Yes. And that came out of my wallet. That is real money. So.
And we thank you very much.
Yes, yes. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. So now we're going to engage in something interesting here. So.
Easy come, easy come.
Actually, no, it's a protected speech. I look these things up.
Why $20?
Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, I have to say, the first time I ever did this, in the congregation I served in South Carolina, people jumped out of their chairs like I was murdering a child. They'll, ah! You all have been a lot more sedate, and I appreciate that. But that's also kind of disappointing. So, oh, this thing's still smoldering here. You'd think it would burn more cleanly. Just a second. Just a second here. There we go. I got it. It's dead, Jim. You get his phaser, I get his wallet. All right. All righty. So that was an interesting experience, wasn't it? All right. So that was a profound experience and even visceral for many of us, after all. But it's only $20, right? I mean, unless there's a deeper experience, a deeper significance. So let's see what some of you wrote. Security. Security and safety. Survival. Aha. All right. I'll put that one aside and I'll read it later. Money means an opportunity to shelter and support my family, to do activities. Greed. Security, freedom. Growth on several fronts. Security and enjoyment. I'm seeing themes here. A tool for using. Trade. Freedom. Security. Money is for survival, and then beyond that, it becomes opportunity. Let's see, here we have money means access to a healthy, deviant life that nurtures my family's holistic well-being amidst the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. That's a quote from Bell Hooks, a very famous African-American and womanist writer. Security and freedom. The value of my time. Let's see here. Money is a medium of exchange, neither good nor bad. What is important is how you acquire it and how you dispose of it. Not needing to rely on my parents. Money means not having to stress. Yes, money also means not having to rely on your in-laws, too. It is part of helping us to live. Value, priorities, and choices. Freedom. Money, sometimes necessary, sometimes limiting, a basic of society. Security. Money is the catalyst for the opportunity to do good. And I really appreciate your legibility, I really do. Money means I don't have to worry about basic needs, and I am able to give to organizations like UUCQC and other groups who contribute to the quality of life in the Quad Cities and the world. To live comfortably, money equals convenience. Security, stability, and ability to thrive, to something the world. I'm sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't say things that. And it means that I can meet my needs and family's needs and support a few causes that help others. Attempt at security. Money allows me to trade money for things I need and want. Security. Comfortable living conditions, peace of mind that I concentrate on helping others. Money provides the means to achieve a good life. Food is important. A complicated, unwieldy system. Money equals my economic vote to reflect my values. Comfort and security. Flexibility and options. Enough. Power. That's one we'll come back to. Security. Hope for people, and survival and comfort. And somebody put a $20 bill in here. I think this was part of the collection. So I will encourage the... No, did not. Yes, I'm not that magically inclined.
Hey, as long as you didn't burn all the corners of the other one.
So, well, we will set those aside. Okay, so we've read all those responses. Now, let me be very clear about something here. What we just engaged in was a symbolic act because this is the original $20 bill. What I burned was a photocopy. I may be old, I ain't stupid.
Wait, do you want me to come back up again?
Well, if you want to come get this 20, that would be fine, you know. So here's 20 that goes back on the collection plate. But no, the first time I ever did this, I was young and foolish, and I actually burned a $20 bill. I'm older and wiser now, and cheaper. And I now have children. So that was a photocopy and that I made. One side was a 20 and the other side was a 1 because you can't photocopy the backside of a 20 now. Photocopiers now have security protocols in them that block you from photocopying them because there's actually a little thread or something in the $20 bill that will not allow you to copy it. All right? So, but that was an act of symbolic speech, and the fact was you thought it was a real $20 bill. And you had that reaction, and so hold on to that feeling and that experience. Now, about money, financier Malcolm Forbes said that money isn't everything as long as you have enough. And comedian Woody Allen puts a similar spin on the situation, writing that money is better than poverty, if only for financial reasons. More philosophically, we can listen to Clint Murchison, who says that money is like manure. If you spread it around, it does a lot of good. If you pile up in one place, it stinks like heck. Writer and social philosopher Albert Camus offers the following challenge that It is a kind of spiritual snobbery that makes people think they can be happy without money. A few years ago, the Reverend Carl Scoville, the longtime minister at King's Chapel in Boston, said to his parishioners, "If someone in the next century wanted to know who we were, she would read our letters and our diaries, our obits, report cards, and job evaluations. But if she wanted to know what we valued, I think she'd have to find our checkbooks." I'd say now our credit card statements. Therefore, of course, he says, we are sensitive about money. He goes on, we are sensitive about our values. We are sensitive about how we rank our needs, our comforts, our fantasies, our family, our friends, our politics, the poor, the state, the church, the neighborhood. To say we are sensitive about these things is perhaps to understate the case. Our money and how we spend it are the last great conversational taboos, things we discuss in secret, if at all. And yet, if our checkbooks mirror our values, it behooves religious people to bring money conversation into the open. End quote. However we want to view it, we need money to help us to assemble the puzzle pieces of our individual lives and our life together as religious communities. Sometimes, due to our past experiences or our lack of them, we are more than a little puzzled by the nature of money and its relationship to our lives, especially as religious people. How we use the resources of our lives speaks more about what is important to us than all the words that we can possibly utter. As the liberal Baptist preacher and social critic, the Reverend Will Campbell, has said, "What you do is your religion." Religious community is one of the places, if not the place, where we should feel safe dealing with the most important issues in our lives, such as birth and death, sexuality, and money. Religion is a mediating and meaning-making force for us with these powerful parts of our lives, but we still deal with money, the very incarnation of power in our society, as if we were our Puritan forebears at a pornography convention. Talking about money in church often gets the same gut-level reaction that my teenagers have when we talk about, parents kissing. Ooh. Many people in our congregation are actually more comfortable talking about their sex lives, unfortunately, than they are about their bank balances. And God forbid, whether we believe in one or not, that someone should know what we give to our congregations. There's some congregations that actually forbid anyone from knowing that information, especially the minister, which is ridiculous because if the minister doesn't know these things, they can't really do their job. I believe one reason for this may all be precisely because money is liquid power in our culture. Power, by the way, is the ability to create or inhibit change. That's more of a sociological definition, but it works. Power is the ability to create and or inhibit change. Whether the most power is concentrated in our lives, wherever that is also where we feel we are potentially the most vulnerable. It is this fear of our possible vulnerability that makes us so uneasy talking about money, especially in a place where we already have our guards partially down. Based on his many years as a UU minister, Carl Scoville felt it's not just about fear or lack of faith, but it's a manifestation of the shadow side of some of our UU religious culture, namely an intense need to maintain control. Now, who would say that UUs have control issues? Yeah. Mainly, get so many alphas in a room. Namely, he says, there's an intense need to maintain control. He offers examples of these kinds of expressions this takes. He says, I'm going to control the way I'm going to die. I'm going to control the way I give to my church. I'm going to control the degree to which I participate in church. And if I don't like something, I'm not going to give. Thank you very much, because my personal integrity is at issue. unquote. Any of you who've been around churches very long, not just UU churches, but any church, have heard that kind of language from someone somewhere along the line. How many of you have heard people say, well, I'll give to the church, but only if I can determine how the money is going to be spent? That's sort of like saying, I'll pay my taxes, but only if I can determine how the money is going to be spent. Good luck. Mainly UUs are not at the bottom of the giving charts because of stinginess or religious doubt. Carl Scoville says, I think it's control, and if you want control, you're not going to be profligate. In fact, you're going to be light years away from profligate, unquote. So what meaning does religion make of money, and where does it fit in our religious values? Well, in a word, traditionally, it's sacrifice. And what does that make you think of? What kind of things does the word sacrifice make you think of? Come on, speak out. Pain. Ooh, okay. Anybody else? Giving. Oh, come on, you all talk like magpies. Giving up. Okay. What? Catholic guilt. Okay. Compromise? Okay. All right. So we hit some of the big ones. Pain. That was the one most people think of. Basically something to do with pain or suffering. Got to give till it hurts. Feel the burn, baby. Now, if I told you that sacrifice doesn't necessarily have anything to do with pain or suffering, that sounds sort of like getting sweet tea without the calories. How do you do it and still have it be authentic? Well, to begin with, first of all, the word sacrifice itself only means to sanctify something. That is, setting something aside as special or important. That's all it means. By setting it aside or identifying it as special, we declare it worthy or of worth, which in turn is the root of the German word, actually it's not German, it's an Old English word, worshipen, to worship. Did you know that? To worship is an Old English word, worshipen, and that word is something of worth, to set aside something as worthy. In other words, sacrifice is the surrender of something for the sake of something else that is worthy. To say something is sacred is to say that it is set aside for some specific purpose or the use of a particularly important or worthy nature. Sacrifice is not the same thing as suffering. Okay? We have conflated those two terms in our society. That is not what it means. It is possible sometimes to suffer when making a sacrifice, but not necessarily. With this, we can honestly talk about giving, not because it hurts, but because it feels good to do it. We don't come here because it hurts, or at least I hope not. We don't come here because it hurts. We come here because we get something out of it that is hopefully renewing, refreshing, changing. We give and should give because we get something out of it, not as a consumer, but as a participant in our journey towards being more whole and holy. In fact, we should give until it feels good, even great. It actually is about healing and even pleasure. Oh my gosh, give till it feels really good, baby. Right? It's not about pain. And I'm not even going to go there if you're into that, so we're not going there. The purpose behind this sacrifice is not to appease some greedy or vindictive deity, but to realign ourselves with what we should hold to be of ultimate importance, with our understanding of what is right and how things should be. We are trying to realign our inner and outer realities and create balance and harmony in our lives and the world. Carl Scoville offers that part of giving, especially traditional tithing, which is giving 10% of one's gross income, not your net, is to put yourself in a particular attitude. He says, hey, I'm going to assume that the act of deliberately giving away a portion of my income puts me in tune with processes or a power or a person I would not be in tune with if I was hanging on to this stuff. It would get in the way of the relationship. Financial advisor and Buddhist meditation teacher George Kinder says that his experience working with clients who bring all of their hopes and fears to the process of trying to understand and manage money, that what he and other advisors are doing is helping to find ways of relating to the deepest part of their client, their spirit and their soul, to the world. Kinder says that money is the medium that relates that two. Money is the medium that relates the two. What he is saying is that in our society, money is the medium which relates our deepest selves to the world at large. This is basically the same thing that the philosopher, the late Jacob Needleman, said in our reading earlier in the service. Needleman wrote that the conditions of life in our current culture do not support inner experiences of movement toward a higher part of oneself that are as vivid as experiences of the outer world, and the part of oneself that is drawn to the outer world. And as money has become the principal means of organizing contact with the outer world, there is nothing more vivid for most of us than the question of how to have, get, make, and accumulate money. No fear greater for many of us than the fear of not having money. Do you think this might explain why people are so touchy about money? If Kinder is right, then our relationship with money is about nothing less than the ways we relate to our deepest selves to the world around us. It certainly fits with the official definition of what money is. Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary says that money is something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value. Now, hopefully we're all seeking meaning here. If we weren't, I don't think we'd be here. If we have, I see a lot of us having a lot of tensions in our seeking to make sense of our lives. And some of us use money to do that. And some have come to religion or social service. The secular consumer culture says that meaning can be found in consuming and immediate gratification. This is the antithesis of the religious message, especially our religious message. Unfortunately, even spiritual experiences have become collectibles for many people looking to fill up their lives with meaning. This is not an attack on religious and spiritual discipline or pilgrimages. In fact, I encourage them. But what I do criticize are those experienced junkies who spend their time leaping from one third world holy site to another without paying attention to the very oppressive and abject conditions which the people they encounter actually live in. This spiritual consumerism turns pilgrimage into a form of tourism with all of the worst connotations associated with that term, and turns spiritual practice into a fad. It is narcissism at its worst. Faith by itself has no works. If it has no works, is dead. Enlightenment and meaning may come to us alone on a mountaintop far away, far from the madding crowd, and I hope it does. But most likely, as with the Buddha, a meaningful life is had in the midst of those who are traveling with us. It is what we have in the very present moment of our lives, in our jobs and schools, in our families, in our communities, when we are engaged with others in the creation of the beloved community. All of us, to the extent we are pursuing, supporting, affirming, promoting, etc., the prophetic principles of this religious community and or similar ones and other traditions, we are living meaningful spiritual lives. While many of us do much of this type of work all the time as part of our livelihoods, we all have the opportunities and obligations to do them, to understand and to the deeply spiritual qualities of what we are actually doing. This understanding is often hard in the face of bureaucracy and the stresses of a workaday world, but it is often true that understanding what we are doing as meaningful spiritual practice better allows us to persevere in spite of such obstacles. In living a meaningful life, that is, doing those things which are fulfilling and just, we empower ourselves and others to even greater potentials. In claiming the right and the need to act mercifully and justly, particularly for those who cannot, we are striving to meet the unenforceable demands placed upon us by virtue of being human. As we act in compassion and justice, more and more, we move deeper and deeper into relationship with the holy as we encounter it in the lives of those we touch and who touch us. For lives to be meaningful, we have to be involved with life, not separate from it. The result is that we minister to and with each other. We are not just members of a religious community, but are ministers to and with each other. And together we become ministers of the holy to the greater whole. This changing of our culture of money and meaning is not an easy thing for us to do. And yet it is something we cannot escape from for very long. We are here together as a community of faith to help each other in our struggles individually and collectively. It is in this dance of building and being the beloved community that we as Unitarian Universalists are unfolding a holy drama. We are putting our money and our lives where our faith is. We are living laboratories in which we seek to find the truth of the assumptions that we claim to live under. We are daily proving and refining what it means to live out our principles and ideals in the real world, in the here and the now. Ultimately, no matter how elegant a philosophy may be, or no matter how aesthetic a religion may be, they must have real and practical benefits for people's lives. They must work and continue to work, or else they will become artifacts of history. If we believe that the ideas we hold dear are valid for the world, we have to show that they are valid for us individually and as a community. This end, I suggest we resolve the tensions between the way we do things and the values we espouse by doing some of the following 5 steps. First, begin addressing the need to engage our fears and control issues individually and as a faith community. Secondly, be honest about how we spend our money and what that means about our current priorities in our lives individually and collectively. 3, compare and contrast our current priorities as displayed in the ways we actually spend our money to the values and priorities we hope we have or believe we should have or need to have. 4th, decide if we want or need to adjust our spending to be more in line with our stated values or beliefs. And if so, then, 5, to create a practical, doable plan to make this realignment a realistic possibility. I offer this to you as a meditation to reflect on over the next weeks, months, and years to come. It may be useful to you to consider or even increase what you're pledging to our beloved community this coming few weeks ahead. Our pledge drive is supposed to officially end in the middle of April. Money and its meaning in our lives is not going to be resolved easily or quickly. But it will not go away either, and it's to our mutual benefit that we address it sooner than later. In seeking to do so, let us be even more open-handed, even more liberal in our financial giving, as we are in our generosity of spirit towards each other. Let our relationship with money not be an impediment, but rather another vehicle to the right relations we seek with ourselves and each other, with the world and all that we know to be holy. And in doing so, then, maybe, someday, all will live in harmony with each other and the earth, and then everywhere will be called Eden once again. So be it. Please join us in our closing hymn, or opening hymn, yeah. Oh no, we're in a time loop, oh no. Our closing hymn, number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, and rise as you're willing and able in body or spirit. Come Thou Fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing Thy grace. Wings of mercy never ceasing, our songs of glorious praise. While the hope of life's perfection fills our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful. May we still Thy goodness prove. Come Thou Fount of every vision, fill our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb fall together in Thy home. Hear the cries of woeful silent, feel our love grow like the sun. When we lost one another, heaven is begun. Come Thou Fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our doom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us find ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. Let me fair as heaven above. Together, let us say the extinguishing for our chalice and send our light out into the world. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Within each of our hearts there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its rays of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile upon you and favor you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you and all people always. Amen and blessed be. Please be seated briefly for the postlude, and then come back and join us for our conversation.
You never give me your money. You only give me your funny paper. And in the middle of negotiations, you break down. I never give you my number. I only And in the middle of investigation, I break down. Out of college, money spent, see no future, pay no rent. All the money's gone, nowhere to go. Every jobber got the sack, Monday morning turning back. Yellow lorry slow, nowhere to go. But oh, that magic feeling, nowhere to go. Oh, that magic feeling, nowhere to go, nowhere to go. One sweet dream, pack up your bags and get in the limousine. Soon we'll be away from here. Start out the gas and wipe that tear away. One sweet dream came true today. Came true today. Came true today. Came true today. Yes, it did.
If that's not worth giving money for, I don't know what is.
Did someone grab that 20 from the,
I put it, I asked,
did you give it to Steve?
Steve.
Okay, then this is the 20 Steve gave me. Okay, I will get it.
Everything I'm wearing except my shoes and my socks are separate. Oh, man. That's the way to go. And
Yeah, I think except for my socks and underwear. It's just getting progressively smaller.
Oh yeah, I have a whole arm for this shirt. It's a little one.
Someday I'll do a t-shirt. I mean, I won't take it. I just, decide. My mom could do it, but she's too busy. My dad retired and my mom got a job, so.
All right, I'm gonna ring the bell, ring-a-ding-ling downstairs.
yeah, that thing's one a little long. He's turning this a little late.
Okay, so pledging is one thing, but then you have to schedule it to be given. Or you go and do it yourself. It doesn't all so your pledge, same notes, maybe?
It might be a good idea. If you would, that would be great.
So if I, after you
Then I
pledge,
don't have to.
so after you read your pledge,
It would be wise.
schedule your donation.
If mine is already the realm, would it? No, keep going. I'll double check it. I don't remember mine. Mine was already. I don't remember Julie. I don't remember how we went to that.
Woo-hoo.
Hey, we can just get our drinks. It's okay. Well, I was supposed to see what your parents downstairs, but that we scheduled that before I did this.
So, as many people downstairs, you know. Chloe, yeah.
John, did you rally them?
No.
Maybe we need to go into
That's
it.
right.
Did you
go down there and poop it outside?
What's the
Just reminds people they had to go home.
What?
Just reminded people that they had to go home.
Man, everybody make
There's something. There's something. Either by eyes, actually.
Thank you all for being here. Hopefully this will be at least marginally informative. And we're trying to just create a chance for people to have a conversation about what's going on currently. Pledge drive is in motion. It's about just over a third of the way through. And we're also in the process of the ministerial transition. There's a together a search profile for the congregation that will go out for a full-time minister. It's currently in process. And those are the two big things. And then this opportunity to be a chance to ask questions for anything on your mind or something you want to know about. We can talk about that. There are a couple of things that will probably be on the congregational meeting agenda. The meeting itself will be May 23rd, 21st. And one of the things we'll be looking at some the new right relations policy that has been brought up. The board has approved before the congregation for vote. And also some changes in some of the membership language is trying to clean that up. It's a little confusing, and that's quite confusing. And we're trying to fix that language so it's not so confusing about membership and dues and so forth. So we're trying to clean that language up. And that'll also be on the agenda as well as the agenda. We'll have the budget for the year, as well as officers and elections. So those are the big things that we're looking at on that. So, did you want to say anything?
Always got something.
Well, George has today, as treasurer, he's got an eye on where we are financially and can give you the
If I may, online is still going, so if you could use the microphone, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, my mistake.
It won't go this way.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, I always have something to say.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Now, can you hear me? Eat it? I can't eat it. It's all right. I'll speak closer to it.
This.
All for me. Anyway, I've been treasurer for a little bit more than 30 days.
Yay!
And I just want to turn in my resignation. No. I have seen behind the curtain. And I just want to share some thoughts with you that to pay the basic bills that we have and the staff that we currently have, our break-even point is just a little bit over $200,000 a year. If you break that down into weeks, that we spend a little bit more than $4,000 a week. And what I want to point out is that we're in this sanctuary because of the people that came before us over 150 years. And we have benefited from their generosity. And because of COVID, we're a much smaller group, community, family is what I want to call it, than we were before it started. And we need to take the responsibility of finding the financial girth among us to keep it going. One example that somebody keeps trying to put out there, if we gave up Starbucks coffee for the week and saved $25, $25 times 52 weeks is $1,200. So it's doable if you break it into smaller increments. So right now, we have a long way to go to get to that $200,000 number. But I think we can do it. The enthusiasm of this group since Patrick has shown up is just a night and day. We are realizing that this is our church, our congregation. And now we have to look at our finances and see where we can possibly add to what we have done in the past. And I think we all pulled back during COVID on how much money we did contribute here. So maybe go to your pre-COVID numbers. I don't know. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. We have a tough road to hoe, but I think we can do it. And it's going to take all of us doing the most we can do, not the least we can do. Are there any questions about? Yes.
Just basic questions. Do you have town halls scheduled to review the budget over the
Yes, yeah,
Do 2 Sundays prior?
right.
I'll repeat that in the mic.
Yeah, town hall meeting is scheduled 2 Sundays, 2 weeks prior to the congregational meeting. And we've already started working on the budget, so it'll be numbers that we'll have more solid when we know by that time. But anything else? That 200 is break even. That's 300,000 is what I heard Darcy's goal was, but I'd be delighted with 250,000. We'd be able to exhale and do the programs that we already have on deck and keep going. Okay?
John, can you explain maybe the difference between capital and the ongoing? Because I think sometimes that gets confusing to people, that the projects that maybe need to be looked at differently.
The projects that are in the budget that we're looking at right now are at their minimum. So we can't take away a whole lot from that. And that portion of it is only 27% of the whole budget. The operations of the congregation for utilities and insurance and bond and payroll and on is really 60% of the budget. So there isn't a whole lot of room to scalp it. Okay.
The question that was asked, the difference between operational budgets and capital budgeting. Capital drives are generally for large projects, and they're usually for things dealing with physical plant kinds of issues, grounds, building, all that sort of thing. We have had some significant repairs for the elevator over the last several years, about $9,000 in repairs total over the last 3 years or so. Part of that came out of an operations budget, half of that, and the other half came out of the endowment, bless you, to the endowment for providing that. And that has kept the elevator operating and legal and all that sort of thing. So that's been a very important place. And so things like major renovations on the property, major work on working on the trees, having arborists come in and do major cleanups. Those could be probably a capital item, and that's generally seen as a separate pocket in the congregation. It's not the same money that comes out of operating, because sometimes people are able to be very generous with certain kinds of projects and are motivated to be very generous with certain kinds of projects. It's not unusual for congregations who may be struggling with their operations budget to actually have very generous capital drives. I just saw this happen in Dallas, at First Dallas there with the big church, which has over 1,000 members. And they have issues with being able to pay their staff enough and cutting back on staffing, and yet they just raised over $1 million for a new wing of the building. So, that kind of thing happens all the time in congregations. So we want to try and also move as much expense out of our operating budget and move it into capital stuff where we can pay it off and be done with it, kind of things. So one of the opportunities the congregation has that you all may want to think about, this is not something you have to do now, but something to think about going forward, is you have about $45,000 remaining on a loan that you all took out a few years ago, and it costs you just under $10,000 a year to pay on that loan yearly. And because it's a variable rate loan, the higher their interest rates go, the more you're paying in interest and less you're paying in principal. And so a few years ago, when interest rates were low, it was a good deal. Now, not so much. It's what they call an ARM, adjustable rate mortgage. And so you have an opportunity, if you wanted to raise the $45,000 and burn that loan, then you would free up $10,000 a year that you're not paying out to the bank. So that's an opportunity you all have it's a different kind of capital drive type thing, but it's the same kind of opportunity to move something from one pocket to another where you're not paying it out all the time. So you have some opportunities going forward that will help ease some of that pressure on yourselves that you have currently. So, any other questions right now? Where are we on the pledge drive, by the way, as far as our number? 70,000 is what we currently have in. And about how many pledges does that reflect? Okay. So we have how many total pledge units that we?
100 members and 40-some friends, so about 100.
Okay, so somewhere up to 150 possible pledge units, individuals and families. So what percentage of those folks have brought in?
Well, if you look at it, 300,000, 70% is not enough.
Well, he's talking about how many pledge units, how many pledges have come in. And I'm not sure, Darcy, who generally has that number in her head, is not with us. Oh, okay, so Hannah's going to go find out. So we're about a third of the way time-wise, or a little more than that, in the drive right now. So that's a good thing. So we have some more time, but the sooner we can get more in, the better. Let me just say also, it's not unusual for congregations to go back to the congregation after they finish the pledge drive to say, we're a little short, can you come up a little bit more with what you got? In the congregations I served for 21 years as a settled minister, more years than not, that's what happened. So that's kind of typical. So if that to happen is not a problem, it's a fairly normal thing to have happen. And you all are relearning a lot of things. A lot of you have memories of doing pledge drives from years ago, but it's been over a decade since you all really did one of this type before. So it really is a relearning process for some of you who've been here a long time, and for new folks who haven't been through one before, this is a brand new experience. And so there's some anxiety around it, and I want you to reassure each other that you will get where you need to go, and just stick with it and go forward. So, sure.
So $4,000 a week, so that's $200,000 a year just for operations.
To cover everything and a very minimal kind of outreach budget and that sort of thing. That.
So you go to $70,000.
Right.
So there's about $130,000.
So basically, to basically have the same budget you had this year, basically, and that's assuming no more higher big. We had very low utility costs this year because the weather was actually very forgiving this winter. We didn't have a lot of snow removal costs compared to what we could have had in past years. And we have done some cost reductions. We've changed our whole trash thing. There was a newsletter article about that. So we've dropped that cost. We're trying to look at a way to reduce our costs in our building security costs, trying to move away from Permar to some other kind of arrangement so that we can have maybe even better building security at a cheaper cost. So we're trying to find ways to economize. At the same time, we're trying to be realistic about certain costs are going to go up no matter what we do. Fuel costs are going up for all the vendors that we have that have fuel costs and that sort of thing. So that's the absolute minimum.
The other issue is the $45,000 costing $10,000. Now, we had a discussion previous to this a few years back, and then the thought was, if you wipe out that debt, then what guarantee you have that that debt will not build back up? So would you folks be able to talk about this, that debt is wiped out at $45,000, that doesn't give you an incentive down the pike? And, what is the disincentive for you guys to leave the church to be on that?
Well, basically, you're paying off a loan, so you're not paying off. You don't have that obligation.
Understood, but then what prohibits the church to go ahead and get another loan? Is there
Nothing prohibits it, but you all have to vote on those things and make choices about that. That would be your choice at that point in time. Right.
So that may have to be refinanced into another loan, and look, parking lot, whatever. It's not covered in
The folks at that time were willing to pay that off, but then there was no guarantee that the church would not go back and
Okay.
rebuild it.
Well-
So if there is some kind of, if you folks be willing to entertain the idea that if you want to put a roof on, do capital campaign and not go back and shut that down.
Okay.
That makes it much more lucrative for some of the people that I know who would be very willing to pay off that loan as long as it's not being built.
Okay. So the thing about the current loan you have is it's not paying for anything. It was just cash. It was a cash loan. The difference between it and doing something that is doing something for capital is you're actually investing in your infrastructure. And that's a significant thing. You're proving that the value of your infrastructure goes up and the usability of your infrastructure goes up. For example, this deck is not legally safe, okay? Because it was built at a time when the codes were different and the materials that it's built out of right now have decayed to the point where I won't go out there, okay? No one should go out there except just to get out the door for an emergency exit. But if we were to try and use this as an events venue, we want to have that space available. Okay, so it actually enhances our ability to function in an events venue kind of place where we can do that to fundraise for the building, where the building helps pay for itself. And that's one of the things churches really need to look at long term is your facilities need to help pay for themselves. They have to, because of all sorts of demographic issues with church sizes and costs. Buildings have to begin paying for themselves. And your physical, your grounds also. You could put up all sorts. You could put a pavilion up for all sorts of activities and events and things. So there's all sorts of things you can invest in infrastructure that's going to pay back, like in a business. Okay, but just taking out a cash loan to tide you over, which is what you did. Well, okay, that got you through a period, but now you needed to get rid of that so you aren't paying it off all the time and incurring the interest. Okay, so my father used to be a fundraiser for churches. He was the statewide fundraiser for the Disciples of Christ churches in the 1960s for the whole state of Texas. And one of the things he told me was that churches that are not in debt for something that's going to build them toward the future actually decline. Okay? Right. Exactly. Okay. But the only guarantee is you all voting, is your choice. You all vote on these issues.
What I'm saying is that if you want to, I completely agree with you.
Sure.
Improve the infrastructure that's around us.
Right.
We only do it if we have the money in there to do it. I'm
Sure.
not saying that no, it's an investment, you can borrow money and you can do it, but that's what, and I have no idea that $45,000 was just to run the operations. I thought it was something else for the capital.
No, it was.
I think that's the issue. What will prohibit is that, voting is not easy. Folks can vote, vote with your dollars. If you cannot do the roof and it's leaking on top of you, so be it.
Well,
Can you guys think about doing something like that? If you put a clause in your, I don't know, whatever, how you do it, that it can only be financed by having the capital funds in the bank.
Well, okay, that's something you all will have to work out. Most congregations do capital drives, the combination of 2 or 3 different types of things. They sell bonds often. They often will then do cash pledges and a couple of other types of mechanisms. So that's a whole set of conversations, and you often bring in people from outside who are experts in this and help you do that kind of fundraising. And so I would say you want to look at the kinds of issues that you want to do for capital, for your infrastructure, and try and do as much of that as a one-shot deal as you can. But I would say if you're looking at your cash flow, trying to eliminate an outflow of $10,000 a year is desirable. And because you're not getting any value out of it except that it tided you over and now that value is gone, And so now you should try and eliminate that encumbrance to your debt, to your operating budget. Yeah.
Out of that 10,000 that we're paying on this loan, do you know what the interest is?
It's variable. It goes up and down.
But can you tell us what the interest has been in the past? What the dollars?
It quite literally goes up monthly
I get that.
and changes.
But we do know how much we have spent over the last year in interest on those loans.
Okay.
So you can tell us.
I don't know the number.
You may not be able to.
Okay.
But yes.
So, but because it's a variable rate loan,
I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I've had one of those myself, so I know how.
Yeah, me too.
That's not,
Yeah.
that's not the issue. I was wondering what the interest, because we're paying it back.
Right.
It's just that we're losing additional dollars by paying an interest.
Right.
So there might be a way to.
Sure.
Why can't we use the endowment?
That's something you all will have to ask if your endowment allows you to do that.
It's there, it's $189,000 paid off.
It depends upon what you all have in your bylaws about what your endowment is designed to pay on and what your endowment committee and other folks are willing to negotiate. That's up to you all internally. That's an internal conversation. Some congregations can do that. Some have absolutely forbidden that kind of thing to happen. So, right. So yeah, endowments are generally not designed to cover that sort of thing. Exceptional costs like that large payment on the elevator is the kind of thing they're designed for, and long-term investment.
And if the loan was initially for regular operating.
Right, it is. It is. So I wouldn't encourage you to use the endowment for it. I would see this as a special fundraising opportunity. Yeah, Marcy? I mean, you all can look at all the policies you want. Keep in mind, you can only do so much by putting something in ink and by creating policies. And you also don't want to back yourself into a corner at some point in time where you're cutting off avenues that you really need to be able to go down. So you have to be careful about that. The only guarantee you all really ultimately have, that any free church congregation does have, is your decisions, is your conversation, your choices that you make, what you have going forward. You all are the deciders. And, so you all are the ones who are going to make those decisions about the best use of your resources, both personally and collectively. So, and if you all decide that taking out a cash loan is your best option, that may be your best option. But there may be others going down the line. So I think you all have gotten through a very difficult period in the last few years. I think you're looking towards rosier projections going forward here. You've got new members. We're 101 members officially with UUA, but we've since then, I think, added 3 or 4 new members just in the last month. So you've got new folks interested in joining, coming in. You've had good visitorship. Turning those folks from visitors to members is actually one of your biggest priorities right now. Reaching out to people in the community is great, but you want to focus on the folks who've already come in the door. And you want to bring them into the community, integrate them as fast and as well as you can. And that's going to be your biggest payoff. So, anything else? Tony?
So I hear you, Patrick, that you're not on the corner yourself in by saying that no debt. But it should be bar should be higher. So rather than majority or maybe 2/3, and again, there's another agenda that's going to be that it should not be easy to get wrong.
Sure. But the people who make that choice are you.
Of course, so they will have it, but I think having a vision here, a larger vision. Right now, we know we need $200,000 to just keep the lights on.
Right. But that's
It's 70, that's one. The other is 45,000. That's clear. If the goal is defined,
right.
if it's measurable, we can get it done.
Yeah.
And then the capital expense in that discussion.
Right.
There are 3 distinct things that can
Exactly. These are very different things, but what I'm trying to lay out is a larger canvas so you'll have a sense of the broader perspective. is that the money you use to pay for things like capital drives and special initiatives, maybe to burn your mortgage, as they say, which is what you might think of this as sort of burning a mortgage. Those are different pockets of money than the money you use for your pledge drives. And because people do give differently for those things. There's a lot of psychological factors involved and people's economic factors. They can do one time, do a large thing on an ongoing basis. They may not have as much space in their budget. Yes?
I think it goes back to what you said earlier, that people are more likely to give their money if they know where their money's going. And
Right.
we've had a lot of success with those capital drives that we've had so far, because people know my money is going to fix the parking lot. My
Right.
money is going to fix the roof. So I feel like I do agree with what Tony's saying, and maybe the loan should be like, I agree it should be harder to get than what it is now. So maybe it's an option if you do a capital drive and you don't need that amount, and then you try to maybe that's our backup option. But I do think that maybe the capital drive should be the next step before loans.
But-
Something like that. We've seen a lot of success with that recent years. We've had positive momentum.
The biggest thing is you want to avoid putting yourself in a position where you feel like you have to take out another cash loan. That's really the biggest warning right here about all of this, is you want to avoid being in that position, which means you all need to be really, really generous, really significantly. If you're not doing 5% of your gross income, that's low, and that needs to be higher. That was what I was doing as a settled minister, and that was what my general recommendation to people was. If you can't do that, do what you can as close to that. Some people can't. They've got very fixed incomes. We understand that. On the other hand, some people are extraordinarily well off. If people are taking multiple vacations a year, they can probably increase their pledge. So, yes.
Does the 200,000 include what it would be for a settled minister? Because that's including your current.
That's the current that I'm being paid, which is higher than you would. Because the congregation size dropped, you all dropped to a lower category of cost for ministers. Okay? So I'm being paid at 3/4 time for the higher cost, because that was where we were with the contract.
By size drop, you just mean the actual
Membership.
right?
I'm sorry?
We didn't actually drop that far. It's just the realistic actual number.
You're right, but the number when I came in, you all were reporting a number somewhere around 170 or something like that. 173, and that was a fantasy, based on, and Jay has said he just winged it, quote unquote, when he put that number in, because that he didn't know. And we had some, you and Darcy spent like 24 people hours going through the books and estimating who was a member and not a member, and just going back to real numbers. So this year, there's been a tremendous amount of effort by your lay leaders, particularly, and staff, to come up with real solid, hard numbers. What are we actually spending? How many members do we actually have? How many friends do we actually have? Rather than just guessing. And for the last 5 or 6 years, you all have been guessing. And so there's been a decline in there, but it wasn't reflected in the reported numbers because we were guessing. So now we have real numbers. So these are solid numbers, and I think that's a really nice thing. So we're trying to build a very solid foundation here of real accountable numbers, and that's great. And the fact that you all did so well this year with your giving, both last spring and with the special fundraiser last fall, with that level of numbers, really being there, that's fantastic. So I think you all really should be congratulating yourselves for doing as well as you have, given what we're now finding out is the real numbers underneath all that. I had one back here.
Sort of change subject of time. There's a shortage of medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I checked the website 2 weeks ago. Gaines and Des Moines, Cedar Rapids has no medicine as far as I can forget. And Iowa City is small.
Right.
The ability to raise money, that's certainly, you all know,
Okay, the ministry shortage is very, very real. It's going to be slightly less bad this year, but only slightly. And that came from Keith Cron, who is the director of Transitions Office for the UUA. I was in a larger conversation with him about a week and a half ago, and was hearing some of this information. There's an extreme shortage of ministers, not just in our denomination, but across the board, okay? In our denomination particularly, a lot of the younger ministers who are coming out are choosing not to go into congregations, but going and doing work in the community, doing social work, doing community activism, that sort of thing. And so there's a shortage there. When COVID hit, we had a lot of older ministers who either immediately retired because of health issues or who hung on through COVID, and now that COVID is over, now they're retiring. And so we've had a big exodus of that older age bracket. A few of those folks have come back and stepped into interim ministers roles. Victoria Stafford, who actually lives in St. Paul, is serving Des Moines. Okay, that's a 4-hour commute. And she goes down there occasionally, and she's just there for 1 year. I'm coming in an hour and a half from Peoria. And so there are people who were brought into this now to try and fill positions. Now, the good news is there are a lot of congregations who have gone to full-time ministry requests. A congregation I served over at Indiana when I was an interim there a couple of years ago, I was there half-time with them for 9 months, and they went out and they found the money and they got a full-time minister. Took them a couple of years of doing various things, but they managed to do that, and they've called someone this year and they're doing very well. And they're not much bigger than you are. In fact, I don't think they're any bigger than you are, size-wise. So, and they're a historic church too, out there on the edge of the Indiana-Illinois line. So they're on the other side of the state. Full-time ministry is your best shot at getting a minister, whether it's interim or full-time, just really realistically. And frankly, that's going to take getting somewhere in the 125 to 150 range.
Members?
I'm sorry?
Members?
Cost of money, $150,000. No. Whatever. I mean, you could have 20 members and raise that money if you got the cash. And there are some that have done that because they have massive endowments that can pay for it. But if you all want full-time ministry, and this is the big issue for you guys long-term, what happens beyond the transitional ministry phase? What do you want on the other side of that? And this is something you all individually and collectively are going to have to talk about a lot, is what's your vision for yourself going forward? Do you see yourself as a congregation that's willing to be served by a part-time minister if you can get one, or arrange for something maybe with, what is it? Is it Cedar Rapids, or who was it you said didn't get a minister? Cedar Falls? Cedar Rapids. I should know better, but Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids, I got confused. Are you willing to do a shared ministry with them? That's a possibility. Are you willing to do anything, or do you really just, you got to have that full-time minister? Well, if you got to have that full-time minister, you got to pay for it, and you got to be competitive with other congregations. You all are not paying pension right now. You're not in the pension plan. To be involved in the pension plan, you have to pay an additional $3,800 to pay pension for your 2 senior employees, for Nicole and for Jeff, because they're already at half-time invested, been over a year, because the UUA pension plan requires that 3/4 of all eligible employees be enrolled in the pension plan. Otherwise, nobody can be enrolled in the pension plan. And if you're not enrolled in the pension plan, most ministers won't even talk to you. Okay? I'm getting the money, but it's not going to the UUA pension plan. Well, yeah, but there's a huge loss in benefits, because by going into the UUA pension plan, a designated religious pension plan, there are benefits when the money's drawn out that nobody else gets, because the money you get it to draw it out in special ways, there are tax breaks on it that you can't get if it goes into a 401k. So it's very different. And for ministers,
it's sort of a non-starter for a lot of them if there's no pension plan. So one of the things you all are going to need to do this coming year, even for a part-time minister, is to have that extra $3,800 or $3,900 or $4,000, whatever it amounts to, paying those to people pension so that you can be enrolled in the UUA pension plan, so that the minister you get will be in the pension plan too. All right? So there's all sorts of knock-ons to things that make you competitive or more competitive or less competitive in a market, and it is a market right now. Yes.
I think, getting into these metrics that you're talking about, for a congregation, I think for a person like me and a big person, I need a big number. I need one number that has all these numbers included. So I would ask the finance committee to come up with, what does it take to run the church? You gave us a number of 4,000. Is that $3,800 per year baked into it? We don't know. We do not want to know that, but that's a discussion we can have. But a big number of what it is, 4,000. The other is, I'm glad that you guys now have a number that's the number of congregants, participants, units, and all that. What gets measured gets done. So that's one. So at least you guys are there. The second is communication. We want to hear from there. We have $4,000 is what we need to turn on the license. We have collected $3,000. There's a delta of that. And obviously this is a church. We cannot run it that way too, but there has to be some level of lean on to the congregants, letting them know what it is, what are the expenses, what is the income, what is the difference, what is the responsibility, and the people who are not paying come here and sit. If I'm sitting here and taking advantage of this beautiful space that was built by other people, there has to be some level of, recognition of that, and not a guilt, but at least verbalize.
Transparency needs to be there.
And communication, that is not clear.
Let me be very, very clear, and we defend your lay leadership.
No.
Sorry, you're right.
Your lay leadership have been busting their hump.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And John walked into a hornet's nest, okay? And right now, we're trying to get to the point to do the thing you're talking about, okay? One of my big things is that congregations need to report their metrics on a regular basis. Good nonprofits do that in their newsletters and other communications. They report their metrics, how many people served, how many things. So you've actually got that information there, including, what'd you take in this month, in your pledges and all that sort of thing. So to the degree that's possible, we're not there yet in our ability to do that, but it's part of the trajectory we're trying to get to. Okay, so please be patient, but also remind people. Okay, so let me offer that. We're trying to get to that point where we can do that. We're still trying to untangle all sorts of things. You had a situation where your minister functioned as the CFO of the congregation for years. Okay, he didn't do anything wrong. It's just not a good model. Okay, and it created a lot of opacity in your system and a lot of, just trust me kind of stuff. And that's not a good way to run. And for a smaller congregation, you really need that transparency, and your lay leaders need to be the ones doing that. I'm going to tell you, there's no other minister I know of who would do that in that job. We ain't going near it because we're not getting paid enough of that. Thank you very much.
What I had said earlier is 60% or 2/3 of the budget is staff and ministers. So there's a whole lot peeling the onion on the other end. So we have to get a bigger number in order to pay for full-time minister, pay every time we're going to do that. But it's I don't know where it's going to come from.
Where it'll come from. If you articulate the number, 200,000, you come up with a number that you take, and that's the number. And don't embed it into the computer or what, email and stuff. I think it should be there in the newsletter, the difference, but also from the pulpit. Once a month, there should be some kind of a conversation on where we are.
Okay. And you're right. We're trying to get to the point where we can do that with some authenticity and accuracy. Okay. So that's just right now where we're at. We're trying to get to the point where we can do that.
And I just want to follow up with what Patrick was saying. The bulletin board that got placed out in the entryway is starting to be a communication tool for that transparency, for the everywhere. I know the transition team is working on some things like that. So those pieces of communication, those figures, those kinds of things, and I'm hearing it, I'm writing it down for the board. We hear that. We hear that. We are working on it, but I want you to know that bulletin board where that communication can be seen once we begin to really get it go.
Right.
Once we put it in place, I think that where this is the transition plan, but also from the public and conversation is important.
No, that is one of the visions of being a good, clear, communicating congregation. So your vision is correct. Just let me say, it's going to take time to get there. You all are in the middle of a major change in your way you operate as a system. Not just your governance, but the whole way you function is changing and has to change. You're smaller. What you can reasonably expect of yourselves as a community has to be pared back a little bit, but also focused. You need to think about what's really important. You have to figure out what your priorities are as a community. And that's going to be a part of your ongoing conversation with each other and with the leadership and everybody else. One of the tools that the congregation has that might be used next year, this is still being kicked around, so don't quote me on this, is the opportunity to use, when congregations go into a ministerial search, they do a congregational survey, a big all-congregation survey that's usually fairly comprehensive, especially if you can get really good participation. If you can do that, it will give you a lot of really great information, both metric and qualitative, about who you are, what you want, things that are important to you as individuals and as a group. And also to have some conversations with each other, maybe some scheduled conversations about who you are, what you want going forward. And those are the kinds of things, hopefully, if you have a minister next year, that will be the case. You'll have some of that. So those are some tools that are available to you. So there's all sorts of things out here that we're looking at. The objective right now for the congregation is to raise the money to be able to go for a full-time minister with the pension plan and be able to bring somebody in who would be here for 1 or 2 years of interim full-time. If that doesn't happen, there are some other possibilities, but we're not trying to go there yet. We're trying to hold out that vision of trying to go full-time and see where that goes, okay? So that's the big thing. So you really need to raise probably 250 to 225, somewhere in that range, to be fairly safe and comfortable. 250, okay. So to be safe and comfortable, I think 225 you might get away with it, but 250 is the comfortable number.
200,000 doesn't include the $9,000.
Oh.
$4,000.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't cover $14,000. All right. So yeah, you really probably need 240 to 250, somewhere in there. All right. So we're trying to get that. So if you've already pledged, if you can increase your pledge, please do so. If you know folks who are kind of waffling, please encourage them to be generous. We're trying to keep costs as low as possible. We were going through the budget with a razor blade and trying to cover everything we can to make sure that we're still managing property and everything else in an appropriate fashion. So, any other questions or concerns or anything else, please? Anybody feel like they haven't been heard or haven't had their questions answered? Well, I'm going to assume you all know everything then. Yeah. Huh? Oh, breaking news. Okay.
All right. We have an opportunity on this pledge drive to increase it by 50% up to $10,000. That any pledge that's greater than last year's pledge will be matched 50 cents for every dollar increased. Wow. So if last year's pledge, if you pledged $1,000 last year and you pledge $1,100 this year, $50 more will be added to that pledge, up to $10,000. So there's a chance if we just play that game, we're going to have $20,000 more in the stewardship than we had last year. So, sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Wow, that's great.
So that's to get the energy going.
So you'll have some incredibly generous people, okay? And we're just trying to ask everybody to be just a little more generous, and that will go a long, long way. You know, $40 a month goes a long way here. Yeah, new members. So, and the thing is, if you've got people who've joined in the last few weeks, you need to go pledge them for the balance of this year and next year. Okay, so yes. Yeah, please.
Okay, we are really encouraging people to pledge on Realm. So if you did that, pledging does one thing on Realm, but you also have to schedule the giving. So I have like a whole presentation about it I'm hoping to do next week. But so like I pledged on Realm, but there's a separate button that you have to give to schedule your pledge to come out electronically. So if you have questions on it, you can let me know. If you didn't pledge on Realm, you don't have to worry about it. But if you aren't signed up for Realm, do it. You can contact Anne Marie or my mom or my sister or me.
And if you didn't pledge, now's your time.
Yeah, pledge, please.
And it's really important if you're not on Realm to get on it, even if you're never going to use it. Because we need to know everybody that's part of the kind of community in Realm. And when we're running 60% or 70%, we don't know what the other 20 are.
And there's an economic reason for being on Realm. It's actually cheaper for us operationally if you're pledging through Realm than if you're doing it through bank transfer, credit cards, or PayPal. So we aren't paying a huge per transaction fee with Realm. We have a blanket fee we cover. Whereas if we through PayPal, which is the most expensive, or through credit cards, or through electronic funds transfer, we pay transaction fees that are higher. So we actually have a higher cost with those kinds of ways, whereas Realm is the lowest cost to us individually. So that's another opportunity there. Yes, in the back.
Yes, I hear that I've seen it from Ryan on Realm, and we do a list of people. How's the editing going down for the non-existing members now? How's that?
There is a Realm committee that is operating, that is working on trying to edit things into a more realistic frame. Okay, so it's going to take time, but we have limited bandwidth, and we have a lot of leaders wearing 4 or 5 hats right now and working tremendous hours. Some of them are here 5-6 days a week and doing stuff. So we're trying to, but there is a group that's dedicated to working on Realm and bringing that much more in line so we don't have so many ghosts on the rolls in that respect. Okay. Thank you very much. If there's anything else, don't hesitate to talk to me, to any of the leaders, board members, if you'd stand up real quick so people can see you. Yay. And Diane here is on the finance committee, and Hannah is on the pledge drive. So please feel free to talk to us. And thank you for coming and spending the time with us this afternoon. Okay? I think it went well.